All right. Anyways, moving on. One other thing we wanted to cover today was kind of an interesting thought I was having up here at midnight on my flight. And I was talking to the guy I was flying with, and I said, what would happen if all of a sudden the Supreme Court or whatever jurisdiction came out and said, we are no longer allowing seniority based employment to occur in America? And I thought about it. I'm like, man, if they just made that happen, and obviously it would be appealed and all those things, what would happen to our careers? And I just made me think a lot about it. I don't know, Scott, like off the first clip, what do you think about that?
Well, so I just started reading Flying the Line, which
Okay.
is a book about the origination of ALPA, the Airlines Pilots Association. And it goes into what kind of very, briefly enough, what life was like before the unions at the airlines. And having worked in the charter world for so long, there are no unions except NetJets. Um, and so I know what it's like in a non-seniority based, non-union company in aviation. And man, it can be rough depending on, because the just like the airlines used to be, they all they care about is getting the routes flown and their profit margins. And, um, historically speaking, they would sacrifice pilots figuratively and literally, if it, to them that was a cost of doing business. And so all the fighting we as a pilot group was done to get where we're at today, uh, was super important for the quality of life we're able to have today. And so, kind of to answer your question, if for some reason some other world that didn't happen or it was taken away, it would be a totally different ball game. Number one, we wouldn't get paid as much. But more importantly, we wouldn't get treated well. All of our rest rules would go away because now the companies would be able to lobby much harder. They'd take all their money that they have to pay to fight the unions and use that to lobby the politicians to get the rest rules changed. Safety would, become very secondary, if not a complete thing of the past. I mean, you look back in the 70s and prior to that, maybe even the 80s and prior to that, and the living the dream YouTube guy in his most recent video did that. Like he made a joke about that, like, oh yeah, 1 week since the last crash or something like that, because aircraft were just going down nonstop back then. They didn't have all the you know both pilot and mechanic union requirements to meet the standards. I know a lot of this is also government regulation driven, but yeah, man, if they took away seniority overnight, a lot of number one, um, it'd be interesting to see how they would award schedules and treat people differently. Um,
So
because
I
yeah, go
I
ahead.
looked it up on like I was curious on, you know, seeing what AI would say, and it made a good point. It'd be like, pilots almost turn into like athlete free agents in a way where you could go and basically try to get on with whatever airline you wanted to at that point because you have no point in seniority. You just go sign this individual contract with an airline
Hmm.
instead of
Yeah, so you could
yeah,
jump around. There was no point in staying long term.
no. So
Oh wow.
yeah, if you think about it from that point of view, let's say that you get hired on with Joe Schmo's airline and they offer 10,000 points to do with whatever you want with your schedule. So depending on, that could be one of the perks where everyone gets awarded a
Mm.
certain amount of points. And in order to hold Christmas off and these whatever dates you want, you have to give so many points and each day is valued at a different amount of points. And so if you have 10,000 points to start the year, you can do whatever you want with getting schedules you want to do. And you also could, negotiate how many days off you want to fly in that sense, what airplane you want to fly. And so again, none of it is seniority driven. It's whatever the company wants to do for you, you can go and do. So I find it
Hmm.
really interesting because I think of the people that are like super senior guys flying at, uh, wide body stuff. I'm like, how would that affect them? Would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Like, would a company want someone with 30 plus years of experience and willing to pay that much of a premium? Or would they rather have someone with 10 years of experience and pay them significantly far less for a contract of 5 years to go operate at 350 or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? So, and then I don't know, it would, like Scott said, it would reduce the pay, I think, significantly.
It
But
would
then
cap out a
also,
lot lower too.
like, what could you do as a pilot that would actually make it better than it is right now? That's what I wonder. Like, what kind of things would actually be better? And so
It would force the airlines to compete at the lower level for pilots because they wouldn't care about the senior guys because those guys would be too entitled and too demanding, so they'd be like, screw you. Um, and so they would be, they'd probably, if I was in a management position and something like this happened, um, I'd be like, okay, if you have 3 to 5 years of experience, but no more than 10 or 15, those are the people we want to target. And then we're going to compete to give those guys the best deal so that we're bringing in guys who at least know what they're doing, but not guys that have so much experience that they're going to be unrealistically demanding. They still are in that medium zone.
it's
And
kind of what they
that's
do right
probably,
now with their
yeah, well,
application.
yeah, 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 yeah. Right.
But what I was going to,
Um,
and I think going off of what you just said is think about it like this, where just like how your resume and everything has points associated to it, you could literally say how many failures have you had throughout your career, how many different, you're a check airman or you whatever, how many thousands of hours, how many type ratings, and you can basically quantify it, meaning X thing gives you X amount of points, and the more points you have basically gets you a better contract. I think that's kind
mm,
of how I could see it going. And then maybe different airlines to entice other people could lower their points that required to be able to hold certain things in that
I
sense.
think I think we're still thinking too much like things are today. Because those
Yeah.
are things you do right now to go to the legacies. Like, so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're still trying to think
Holding it
like
on
we
to it.
currently, yeah, we can't, we're not thinking outside the box. We're still in the box, trying to modify the box to fit this scenario.
Okay. Okay. So let's jump out of the
You got to
box,
think like
Scott.
management. How would you screw the pilots the most?
Bah, humbug.
Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, you need to channel your inner Frank Lorenzo.
Oh,
Like,
how do I pit each other against everyone else and get the
yeah.
bottom tier price? I don't know. Go
Well, and
ahead.
that's
How,
what I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying.
Tell me.
That's why I'm saying you target the more junior guys who, because starting out, it would go back to like the pre 1,500 hour rule. Like pre 1,500 hours, not most, some of those guys were pay to play. You didn't get paid while, I mean, in the past it was pay to play. And then like the last couple that did it were like Great Lakes and stuff where you didn't get paid while you were in training. Um, and then you had to pay for your own hotel.
I still think that's so crazy, dude. How
And
you just
and
show
that's
up?
only a few years ago. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what, like five,
Mhm.
7 years
Yeah.
ago, I think. Yeah, give or take. And so like this is pretty, that's what it's like, it's pretty recent. And so I think it would go back to that as a barrier to entry, but they would also rally really hard to get rid of that 1,500 hour rule so they could do it at 250 hours with your wet commercial. And so they would do that. And then you'd fight your way up to make 100 grand a year, and it'd probably take you 5+ years to do that. And so then the legacies could compete for those guys, and be like, well, we'll pay you 150 if you come here,
Yeah.
but then
Do you
you'll
think they
cap
would
out
make
at
you?
200.
Do you think they'd make you sign a contract for 5 years to stay? So you want to go and do?
They totally could. Why wouldn't they?
But then I guess
I
another
mean,
thing is like if things got really desperate, every other company could just buy them out of that contract.
and so that's that in the charter world, that's how it
Okay.
works.